This moment is a serious wake-up call for Caitlin Clark's critics, because everything has just shifted. Let me break it down. For a while, it looked like Caitlin was in trouble. She was sidelined, the Fever were struggling, and the narrative started to lean into the idea that her early momentum might have run out. Some were even echoing Diana Taurasi's infamous reality check comment, convinced her prophecy was finally unfolding. They saw an opening and wasted no time taking shots. But then came the Commissioner's Cup victory, and that changed everything. No one saw it coming, especially not ESPN, who ended up looking completely out of touch. More on that in a minute. This win reshaped the conversation around Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever in 3 major ways. I'll break those down in this video, but one thing is crystal clear. The more the Fever succeed, the louder the noise gets around them. And Caitlin's post-game remarks? Let's just say they might end up being prophetic. Stick around as we dive into what happened, how the haters are reacting, and what's coming next. But first, drop a trophy in the comments if you're celebrating this huge win for the Fever. Let's start with the obvious. This is the version of the Indiana Fever that fans hoped to see when the season began. But heading into the Commissioner's Cup final, almost no one expected this outcome. Expectations were sky high at the start. The Fever added key free agents, launched their bold Now You Know campaign, sending a message that they were ready to take over the league, and of course had Caitlin Clark, who returned stronger and more determined than ever. And they started with a statement, a dominant win over the Chicago Sky that drew an incredible 2.7 million viewers. But things quickly got complicated. Controversy surrounding a hate speech investigation made headlines. Caitlin suffered a 5-game injury. Dana Evans' on-court production dipped noticeably, and just when it seemed like things were stabilizing, after Caitlin's electric comeback game against the Liberty, the very next matchup turned chaotic. That night, it felt less like basketball and more like a wrestling match. Players like Marina Mabrey and others came in hard, while officials seemed hesitant to call anything at all. Then came the injury against Seattle late in the game during what many considered garbage time, which kept Caitlin sidelined for the Commissioner's Cup final. Given all that, few thought Indiana had a real shot at taking down the Minnesota Lynx. And to make matters worse, ESPN delivered one of the most awkward broadcasting moments mid-game, a misstep that fans definitely noticed.
ESPN posted, I think around the 3rd quarter, at least that's when I was notified about it, that the Lynx dominate the Fever to win the Commissioner's Cup. And I took a screenshot. This is totally my screenshot, so I went and I verified this because I just couldn't believe it.
And yes, I double-checked this. ESPN kept the same headline on screen for the entire game and only updated it after the final buzzer. Unreal, but here's the part that really mattered. Even without Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever rose to the occasion and proved exactly what they're capable of. After falling behind early, they responded with an incredible 18-0 run and completely took control of the game. Individual performances were outstanding, especially from Natasha Howard, who openly said she wanted to win MVP and backed it up with a dominant showing. That's what you call speaking it into existence. The Fever completely flipped the script, especially on ESPN, and delivered a statement win over the Lynx right in their own building. And while Clark wasn't on the court, the reaction online said it all. Fans and critics alike realized this wasn't just a Fever win, it was a win that elevated the entire team. And yes, even without playing, Caitlin Clark walked away with a championship, and that's what drove her critics absolutely wild.
The only strike against Caitlin Clark is that she has not won a national championship. And that is the only thing that you can put against.
One of the most common criticisms aimed at Caitlin Clark has been her lack of a championship. Despite breaking records and leading Iowa to back-to-back national title games, that missing trophy was often used to hold her back, most notably when ESPN left her off their list of the top 5 greatest women's college players of all time. And while the whole rivalry with Angel Reese has been overplayed, especially considering the clear gap in skill and influence, critics have constantly leaned on one thing, the fact that Angel has a championship from LSU and the unrivaled league, while Caitlin didn't. That one narrative, Angel's a winner, Caitlin isn't, was their go-to argument. But with the Fever's Commissioner's Cup victory, that narrative just lost its foundation. Of course, some critics are already trying to discredit the moment. They're saying it doesn't count as a real championship, or that Caitlin's absence from the final game invalidates the win altogether. But here's the thing, that logic doesn't hold up, and we're about to explain exactly why.
They did win the final without her. But it's not like she's Nikola Topic or anything. The only reason they got to the final was because she had a 32-point near triple-double against the New York Liberty. They beat the previously undefeated New York Liberty after a Caitlin Clark masterclass in a game no one thought they were going to win.
Caitlin Clark played a pivotal role in getting the Fever to that stage, delivering an outstanding performance against the Liberty and making a real difference in the matchup against the Sun. Yet despite her clear impact, some critics have shifted the conversation entirely, claiming the game was somehow unfair. But let's be honest, when a team earns their spot through hard work and execution, calling it rigged is just a way for the doubters to cope.
The real fans, all right? Capitalize the real fans of the W will find out what backroom deal you two made to have the Lynx throw this game. Not even cracking 60 points. That isn't even believable to the most naked eye. When we find out, we're coming for your jobs. Full force.
What's really interesting here is the double standard. Some of the same people criticizing Caitlin Clark's Commissioner's Cup victory were the loudest voices celebrating Angel Reese's unrivaled championship, which, while professional, doesn't follow the traditional WNBA format. And let's be clear, Angel didn't just miss the final. She wasn't even in the arena. Still, that didn't stop fans, media outlets, and social media from congratulating her like she led the charge. They praised her win and used it to claim she had 2 championships, while Clark had none. Fast forward to Caitlin's situation. She helped the Fever reach the Commissioner's Cup final with standout performances against the Liberty and the Sun. And yet, somehow her win doesn't count because she didn't play in the final, and the critics are now calling it rigged. The inconsistency is hard to ignore, but here's what really has the doubters rattled. The Fever didn't just win, but they did it on the road against the Minnesota Lynx, who were 14 and 2 at the time and arguably the best team in the league. And yes, it was in an arena packed with Fever and Iowa fans, but it was still a true road game. This win proves something important. The veteran leaders that Indiana brought in to shine during big moments stepped up. Natasha Howard played like a true MVP. Sophie Cunningham hit big shots when it counted, and with strong seasons from Aaliyah Boston and Lexi Hull, there's plenty to feel good about moving forward. Are the Fever a flawless team? Of course not. Is there room for fair criticism of coaching decisions? Absolutely, but the momentum is real, and as promised, this victory reshaped the trajectory of their season in 3 major ways. Let's break it down. First off, this win has completely shifted the mood around the Indiana Fever. You know the saying, winning changes everything, and even though Sophie Cunningham recently mentioned the team felt disconnected, a championship, even a midseason one, has a way of bringing everyone together. They had to go through 2 of the toughest teams in the league, the Liberty and the Lynx, to get here. That's no small feat. While it's unrealistic to expect them to be flawless from here on out, the energy and confidence are clearly back. They've pushed through the tough stretch, and now with Ari McDonald officially in the rotation, they look far more versatile than they did earlier in the season. Second, this win gives Caitlin Clark something she desperately needed: time. There's been a lot of speculation, including from fans and analysts, that she may have been rushed back from injury earlier in the season. But now, with the team proving they can compete without her, there's no pressure to rush her return. In fact, we're already seeing signs of a more cautious approach. Instead of listing Caitlin as a game time decision, the Fever announced well ahead of time that she wouldn't suit up against the Aces. That's a clear shift in mindset, one that prioritizes her long-term health. And third, once Caitlin does return at full strength, she'll be stepping back into a team that's found its rhythm. With McDonald now a consistent contributor and the rest of the roster gaining momentum, they don't need to lean on Caitlin to carry the entire load right away. That's a big deal, especially when it comes to avoiding re-injury. And here's a bonus: with the team back in playoff conversations and some room under the salary cap, the Fever could potentially make a trade to bolster the roster even more. That's a scary thought for those rooting against them, because when Caitlin was struggling, the critics were louder than ever. But now, the Fever are thriving, and it's clear that their story is far from over.
Caitlin Clark finished 9th in player voting. In fact, she finished behind one of her own teammates in player voting for the All-Star game. The pettiness has no bounds.
Let's be honest, there are plenty of explanations floating around about why Caitlin Clark was placed 9th among guards in the All-Star player vote. And sure, technically it wasn't a direct ranking, but no matter how you break it down, that position doesn't reflect the reality of what we're seeing on the court. When you consider how often opposing defenses send double teams her way, and you look at her production, even while managing injuries and dealing with a few rough games likely tied to that, it's hard not to question the outcome. Based on performance, impact, and the attention she draws every night, calling her the 9th best guard just doesn't add up. It feels less like an honest assessment and more like a statement, and not a fair one.
America loves her, the fans clearly love her, the media likes her, but the players can't stand her. 9th best guard in the league. Don't try to give me the excuses of, well, she's been struggling lately, or she missed some games with injury. Come on, this is insanity. And I think it's an activist vote by the women of the WNBA who simply cannot stand her success. It's so dumb and it's so childish.
The message was clear. It looked like Caitlin Clark was being counted out. Critics thought she was down and out, and the momentum was shifting away from her. But everything changed with the Fever's Commissioner's Cup victory. Not only does that win boost team confidence, it also gives Caitlin more time to fully recover. And just like that, the narrative has shifted. The critics are no longer confident, not because they're afraid to face her on the court, but because they understand what a fully healthy Caitlin Clark and a surging Fever team represent. More attention, more record-breaking viewership, a growing fan base, and oddly enough, that's exactly what some people within the league don't want. As strange as it sounds, not everyone is welcoming the wave of new fans, and here's why.
Ourselves to the NBA, but I do feel like the pay gap would be something that, we could just take a donation around the NBA, maybe one night y'all don't go to the casinos.
I have something on this though, because it pisses me off. It pisses me off because I don't think there's anyone in America that supports the WNBA more than NBA players.
100%.
This clip may not be new, but it helps shed light on the bigger picture. Since the WNBA's founding, the NBA has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into the league, acting as a major source of support over the last few decades. Without that backing, it's likely the WNBA wouldn't have made it this far. Even with rising stars like Caitlin Clark bringing more attention than ever, the league still reported an estimated $40 million loss last year. In many ways, the WNBA has been operating with the NBA acting as a safety net, keeping it steady even through tough times. Caitlin Clark brought something new to the table, the potential to shift the league toward financial independence, to stand on its own. But just like learning to ride a bike without training wheels, there are bound to be stumbles. Some of the backlash we're seeing isn't about the game itself, but about how new audiences, casual sports fans, react. These fans are used to critiquing athletes in real time, holding them to high standards, and expecting entertainment above all else. That kind of attention comes with pressure, especially for players who've grown accustomed to a smaller, more tightly knit fan base. A clip from WNBA legend Lisa Leslie recently resurfaced, highlighting the reality many still overlook. The league's survival has long been tied to outside investment, and while the growth is real, it's also fragile. There's a perception among some players that the league is now too big to fail, but with that comes another issue, expecting immediate rewards before long-term sustainability is achieved. If and when the league becomes profitable, the first step might not be raises, it might be paying back the stakeholders who helped it survive. There's also been growing talk about a potential strike, and some players seem confident that fans will return no matter what, but assuming casual fans will always come back, especially while criticizing the very star bringing in new audiences, Caitlin Clark may not be a risk worth taking. For some, the pressure of this new era is uncomfortable, and it's understandable. They're used to a league with less spotlight, but the game is changing, and this moment may determine how far the WNBA can go from here.
And in talking to a source or two, it appears that Bonner was unable to, in some way, shape, or form, just deal with that spotlight, which is white hot. Right? Yeah. It is just...
It seems likely that many players are feeling the pressure, whether it's the overwhelming crowds, the non-stop social media noise, or the intense spotlight that wasn't there before. But there's another layer to this story.
And that's the worst part of all this, is the new fans are sucking the life out of the WNBA right now. It's just the truth. You are right. You are right, new fans. There has never been more viewership because of Caitlin Clark. There's never been more attention. They're doing 40 minutes on First Take about Caitlin Clark. They never did that before, as Monica McNutt called out. You're right. But you know what there was in the WNBA last year and the years prior? There was other storylines. There was joy. There was talk of competition. There was talk of what was actually happening on.
There are some players, fans, and even members of the media who clearly feel frustrated by how much of the spotlight is focused on Caitlin Clark. It's not just that one player is receiving so much attention, it's about who that player is. For some, that reality is difficult to accept.
But it's interesting, for years, the WNBA players were pointing fingers. They were saying people are sexist, the media is sexist, we're not being promoted, we're underappreciated. And then they get the golden goose and they don't like what it looks like. Iowa girl, Indiana girl. Well, who knows? And I've said this for years. When the wave hits, ride it. You don't know what it looks like.
All of this has created a growing sense that it's Caitlin Clark and the Fever against the rest of the league. And it's not just something fans are noticing. Caitlin feels it, and so do her teammates. You could even hear it in her voice after the Commissioner's Cup victory, when she shared a revealing comment that said more than she may have intended.
Guys, I just know everybody in the league is sick. They're pissed.
They're frustrated and clearly unhappy. Remember, Caitlin was ranked only 9th among guards, despite many considering her a top 3 talent. The critics aren't pleased, and since there's no sign of a shift in perception anytime soon, the negativity is likely to intensify. The physical challenges on the court will keep coming, and referees may continue to let it slide. Caitlin's words feel like a prediction. With the Fever back in championship contention, the backlash is sure to grow.
We started the year talking about them being a contender for a WNBA championship, and if anything, tonight what I learned is they have what it takes. I mean, they played 5 of their last 6 games on the road coming in here, and if you can win games on the road like they did in an environment like they won in tonight, the sky's really the limit. And this is a team that's starting to get their confidence, they're showing their depth.
The Fever have grown tougher through every challenge they've faced, and they'll need that resilience because the WNBA's ongoing tensions are far from over. The only way forward for Caitlin Clark and the Fever is to keep winning. After securing the first championship of the 2025 season, their focus now shifts to defending that title. If you enjoyed this video, drop a trophy emoji in the comments to show your support for sticking with us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.